I'd like to call to order the June 7th, 2016 City Council meeting. And so, we're going to start off tonight with our invocation by Pastor Steve De Nicola. Good to see you again.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Would you bow your heads with me and your hearts? Heavenly Father, as we begin this meeting on this special day, the day that we vote, and we're reminded that these men before us are here because the people of Lake Forest voted them into office here tonight to serve and represent them. Lord, to deal with the businesses of running this city, I ask, Lord, that you would anoint them and bless them in their efforts tonight. Lord, give this council wisdom and understanding and unity. And Lord, I ask, Father, that you would grace them and their families and all of the staff here, Lord, as they give so selflessly to serve the people of this community. Lord, we thank you for them. And we ask, Lord, that you'd bless them, bless their families, bless their children and their wives as they spend so much time apart from them. Lord, that you would care for them and encourage them. And so, Lord, the affairs and the businesses tonight we give to you, and we ask, Lord, that you would help us to do the best thing, the right thing. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor Steve. So that leads us to the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Nick.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for all.
Which leads us to our city attorney reporting on the closed session.
There's no action to report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
So, I'm honored tonight to introduce a special person in the city. Her name is Kaya McCullough, and she actually just was named the Orange County Female Athlete of the Year. This is all sports.
Thank you.
And I hear this is your last report.
It is.
So we have lots of happy thoughts and sad thoughts to see you go. So
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kaya McCullough here, reporting to you for one last time all of the amazing things we have going on at El Toro. Before I begin, I'd like to give a warm welcome to my successor and next year's student liaison, Joe Surrey. I am positive Joe will do a great job informing you of all the wonderful things in store for El Toro next year, and I cannot wait to see how the year goes. With the end of the year quickly approaching and graduation looming above our heads, I'd first like to look back on all the wonderful memories we've made this year at El Toro. Whether remembering our spooky haunted homecoming, our record-breaking canned food drive, an amazing all-school musical, a competitive 96-team dodgeball tournament, a speedy winter formal at K1 Speed, a spirit-evoking clash of classes, a tear-jerking every 15 minutes, or a prom night to remember underneath the Garden of Lights. This year has truly been one for the books thanks to the class of 2016. As the last week for seniors continues, the anticipation for Senior Week grows more and more palpable. Next week, Monday will kick off the festivities with Senior Field Day, a celebration on the Toledo fields filled with fun games, lots of laughs, and a huge in-and-out truck for all seniors. Tuesday marks the highly anticipated Magic Mountain trip, where seniors will spend the day riding thrilling coasters and relaxing at a picnic. Wednesday morning, a senior breakfast starts the day with a rehearsal for the commencement ceremony shortly following. On the big day, Thursday, June 16th, over 600 seniors will walk in our stadium for the final time as they accept their diplomas. To finish out the night, in a final hurrah for the class of 2016, A Time Warp-themed grad night on campus will celebrate the new graduates. This week will be filled with laughter, tears, and everything in between as seniors reminisce about their wonderful years at El Toro. Besides the seniors, there are still many things El Toro has to celebrate in these last few weeks. I'd like to give a very special congratulations for Malia Medley and Alicia Green for their excellent performances at the state track meet over the weekend. Malia took 3rd place in the 400 meters and is now recognized as the fastest sophomore in California, as well as the 3rd fastest sophomore in the nation. Alicia finished in 10th place in the shot put and finishes as the 3rd ranked junior shot putter in California and the 29th ranked junior shot putter in the nation. We are so immensely proud of our Lady Chargers, and I cannot wait to look for their names in the papers next year. Another congratulations goes to the El Toro Vocal Music Program, where Choralistics and Soundsation performed at the Music in the Parks Festival this past weekend. Among schools from all over the West Coast, Soundsation received a superior rating and took 1st place in show choirs, and Choralistics received a superior rating and got 1st place in women's choirs, as well as the best overall choir, which is the highest music rating out of all the choirs in all the categories. We are so proud of these fantastic programs. Last, but certainly not least, a huge congratulations to our academic decathlon team, who placed 3rd in a county-wide academic competition. These students have trained very hard all year, and we are extremely proud of them and all their accomplishments. As I look forward to what the future holds, I can't help but smile at the past 4 years El Toro has given me. Through all the tough times, there's always been a huge community of support and love for anybody who has needed it. I will forever cherish the school that has shown me so much compassion, spirit, and unconditional love no matter the circumstances. And for that, I will always be proud to be a Charger. That's all for tonight. Have a great rest of your evening, and as always, go Chargers. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Yes, I have a presentation too. But before I do that, I want to just read a little bit and say that Kaya also had a 4.7. I don't know how you could do that. I thought 4 was the highest. And is ranked in the top 20 in her graduating class. She is only the 2nd female Charger to win this distinct honor in the 30 years it's been given out. The previous Charger was Molly Pearson in 2005. Kaya is going to the University of California at UCLA on a full scholarship to play soccer. And with that, I want to present you with a plaque for your service here as the student liaison.
You know, as I always say, Chargers always make me proud, but you exceeded everybody's expectation. You did a great job as a 4-year starter on varsity.
Yeah.
And actually had a great run this year, so thank you for making us as a city so proud.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
on behalf of the city, I want to say thank you so much
Thank you.
for all your services as a student liaison and for just an amazing career in sports
Thank you so much. Thanks for
and
giving me
academics.
this
So this goes with
opportunity.
you too.
Thank you.
And we might not. Okay. And we have a bag too. I thought we were going to get a picture. That's all right.
Oh,
So here's a nice little goodie bag.
thank you.
So congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks, Wes.
And go Bruins.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, that leads us to the public comment section tonight. If you are so inclined to come up, you can speak on any item that's not on the agenda. You have 3 minutes. Little lights come on. When the yellow light comes on, you have 1 minute left, and when you hear the buzzer, unfortunately, your time is up. So Do we have any speakers?
David Carter, followed by Pam Estes.
Welcome.
Welcome. Well, thank you. Thank you. Honorable Mayor and members of the council, I'm Dave Carter, 37-year resident of the city of Lake Forest. I'm here on behalf of Boys and Girls Club. First, I want to give you an update on our event we held this past weekend, A Night Under the Stars. We raised a total net between $21,000 and $22,000 that will go to support the programs here in Lake Forest. Those monies will probably be utilized in supporting our summer program, which is a summer brain gain. We're taking 50 kids down to Laguna Beach, and that's because we don't have a place to do it up here yet. Which brings me to the second point. The Boys and Girls Club would like to make a specific request that the council agendize a report we'd like to bring and present to you. In that report, we have 3 areas that we'd like to focus on to enhance the Boys and Girls Club program here and to bring something more to the city of Lake Forest. The first one is we would like to help with the teen center up at the sports park. We have 4 programs that we possibly could introduce and help up there, which is Smart Mover, College Bound, Career Launch, and Keystone. And we'd like to present those and the opportunity that would be to collaborate there. The second item we'd like to address in our proposal or presentation is we would like to start a discussion as to whether or not there is a possibility to place on a parcel, either being at a park, El Toro Park as an example, or a vacant piece of dirt. I think of the terminus of Ridge Route and the 405, to where we can either put a temporary facility or possibly run a mobile unit out of those sites. And the third, which is probably more important, and the one that's going to really challenge us, we want to participate in the bid process for the after-school programs that are being presented in the city of Lake Forest. There's only one way we can do that, and that would be if you could consider agendizing our presentation. And that's pretty much going to wrap up what I had to say. I brought along my counterpart. I can't say a counterpart because more likely I'll end up working under her direction than the other way around. And ma'am, she's the executive director down in Laguna Beach.
And just for logistics purposes,
Yes.
Is this a second speaker?
Yes, she's the
Yeah,
second
okay.
speaker.
Just want to make sure.
We came up, but I didn't know it'd be.
Yeah, I didn't want you to only have like 30 seconds left.
Gotcha.
Hi, I'm Pam Estes, and I'm the Executive Director for the Boys and Girls Club of Laguna Beach. And we've been serving kids in Lake Forest for the past several years. It's amazing we've got such huge community support for what we do, but we keep hitting these roadblocks of just having a place to do it. We are mandated, seeing Kaya is like amazing. And, thinking about just down the street within 1 mile are 1,500 elementary school students. 70% are on the free and reduced lunch program. 70% are English learners, and they don't have anything. And they are calling us, and we want to help. And so I'm looking forward to the opportunity of being able to present a more detailed explanation of what we can provide and becoming a stronger part of this community. So thank you.
Thank you. And welcome. I didn't say welcome.
Varsha Patel, followed by Andrew O'Connor.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City of Council. Hello? Yeah. We live here in Lake Forest for 30 years. No problem. We had enjoyed living here. May 19th, our house got burglarized, and police response was really fast. That was good. But once they got there, they didn't even find out how they got in. I'm the one who found out how the burglars got in my house. And after that, I was misinformed that I can go ahead and clean my room. But then when crime investigation officer came, and first thing she asked that, take me to the room. I said, I cleaned up everything. And she says, well, why? And I said, I asked the officer, and he said, go ahead and clean it up. if you want, because they are not going to take fingerprints there, they're only going to take it on the window. So it's like, there is not much communication going on between these two teams. And after that, nobody called me back for what's going on or how the investigation is going on or nothing. What they took is only important to me, not to anybody else. So I think that's how they treat that. So thank you.
And unfortunately, we can't comment, but thank you for your comments on your specific situation. So maybe someone can reach out to her. That would be great.
Andrew O'Connor, followed by Bob Holtzclaw.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I believe you have a copy of my paper. This is addressed tonight to City Manager Robert Dunek. My name is Andrew O'Connor. I've been a resident of Foothill Ranch since 1990. And tonight, City Manager, I'd like to talk to you about code enforcement and why it's not being followed. Ask Lake Forest ticket number 4862, dated January 27, 2016, regarding the El Paseo construction fence. Numerous excuses have been provided by D. Hill why it's taken over 5 months to plant ground cover and remove 500 feet of fencing on eastbound Bake Parkway between Town Center and Portola Parkway. Latest excuse I received on Monday, he's waiting for mulch. Ask Lake Forest ticket number 4943, dated February 15th of this year, over 4.5 months on Portola Parkway at the Ralph Shopping Center. Cortland Companies has a monument sign that is fine, it's respectable. But right next to it, they have a wooden sign with the same information 30 feet away. S. Card from your city has agreed it is a code violation. She's going to take action. However, the sign still remains. Coming tonight to the City Council meeting on Portola Parkway, southbound between Bake and Lake Forest, Cushman Wakefield has a sign recently installed, says available. Well, what's available? How come they get to have a sign going through my community? I don't like it. Ask Lake Forest 5371 on June 6th, Pepino's Restaurant on Rockfield was discharging food waste onto the driveway using precious water to wash down the asphalt. I've got no response from your department if anyone's gone out there. It's been 48 hours, sir. Ask Lake Forest 5372, same day, 4 deputies eating breakfast at 6 a.m. at IHOP Restaurant Rockfield, Sergeant Valentine. This is the second time this has happened. It happened in January of this year where you had 6 deputies at Panera Bread, and you answered back to me and said this was not department code and shouldn't happen. So, sir, I'm asking you, why is this happening again? 4 deputies at IHOP at 6 o'clock in the morning. Heroes Park, I've asked both the city to go out there and find out why the bushes aren't taken care of, why we have a faded whole flag, and Councilman Robinson said he was going to get right on it. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have a faded, torn flag at Heroes Park. That's disrespectful. That park is named for the 9/11 responders. Does anybody go out and check any of this stuff? I obviously not, because I get blank stares. But, silly me. If we connect the dots here, we've got Pepino's, who's contributed to the Gang of 3. We have Brookfield, who's contributed to the Gang of 3. So they have no reason to follow the codes in the city of Lake Forest. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Bob Holtzclaw, followed by Jerry Verplank.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Bob Holtzclaw. I'm a resident here of Lake Forest. And I think the memorial that we had at the cemetery, I think it went off pretty good. And if the mayor is responsible for keeping the political part down as far as you could, I appreciate it. It's not for politics. I know when we shook hands at the during Memorial Day, and you asked me if I was in the service, and yes, I was. The medal that you were looking at right here, that's the Congressional Soldiers Medal. And Congress, it's an act of Congress to get it. They also print your name on the back of it, so you know that it's yours. What I actually came here for is you got a paper in front of you. It's the drainage system. It's under Geronimo. Yeah, we got to really clean that up. I mean, the kids have been tearing the plastic off. I took about 12 feet of plastic up on the gutter on the sidewalk. Could have gone into the traffic on Geronimo, and I contacted Dr. Gardner on it. But, it's, and if you look on the top there, on that storm drain, there's sandbags tied right above the heads of that right there. Those were all the kids go home from school and go to school in the morning. If one of those sandbags, because they're only tied there with a little string, if one of those things fell off on someone's head, well, we'd have a lawsuit that you wouldn't believe. And this has to be cleaned up. I know last month Mr. Wheeler's got the message on it, to clean it up, but got plastic floating down, in the stream there. It's time to clean it up. If we had rain, it would be washing down the creek, and we'd be charged for that. Last thing is we did the Aliso Creek cleanup. The apartments on the other side would like to have us contact Mission Viejo, and maybe we can do this as a 6-month deal, where we do it 6 month, and Mission Viejo does it again because the other side is Mission Viejo on that creek. Would keep the garbage down a lot, because how much garbage we picked up was was just obscene. So thank you very much.
Thanks again, and again, thank you for your service.
Jerry Verplank.
Welcome.
Take that. I like that. Honorable Mayor and City Council, I come here tonight because I've got something I'd like to share with you, and I'd like your cooperation. It's going to be kind of fun, so let's have a little bit of good times. So please do indulge me with your cooperation. First, I'd like you to write something down. All right? And I can see you're all grabbing your pens. You can always watch the video on this. What I'd like you to do is I'd like to consider this question. What are you doing, or what have you done that's contributed to the division that we're seeing in our council? That's the first half of the question. And roll with me. Come on, we're going to have a little fun here. The second part of this is, what will you commit to doing to resolve the issues? All right? It's kind of funny. I've left a little something with Stephanie, and she's going to give it to you. She'll put it in her box. And what I'd like you to do is look at that before you develop an answer for those questions, okay? I want to encourage you guys, because I know what you can do. And with this excellent staff that we've got, I know what you can do for this city. Right? The second thing I'm going to ask you to do, and this might be a little more difficult, if you have been injured in any way by any fellow council member, I'm going to ask you to go to that council member and forgive them. And if you have injured someone, I'm going to ask you to go to that person or those persons and ask for their forgiveness. Okay? Because unforgiveness is like taking a poison pill hoping the other person's going to die. And I'm going to start by kicking this off. I'm going to make a confession here. And I'm going to ask for forgiveness of Councilmember Nick and Councilmember Gardner, because I'm guilty. I'm guilty of speaking unkindly about both of you over some things that I disagreed with you with over in your duties here as a council member. I've spoken to people in the community, and I shouldn't do that. If I've got an issue with any of you, I need to come straight to you. So I ask your forgiveness. Okay? All right. I'm going to lighten it up here. I want to follow up on our student liaison, because the El Toro varsity baseball team won the South Coast League this year. They went their last 12 games, they won them all. They went into CIF and won the first two. They went 14-1 their last 15 games. They've ended up number 2 in the county and number 4 in the state. A big hats off to Coach Mike Gonzalez and the 2016 El Toro Charger varsity baseball. Thank you for your time, and God bless you.
We've had no further requests.
And thank you for your comments.
I have a couple of comments back. We have a funny system where we have to wait until the end of everything before we can ask questions or comment back to people. I find it awkward, but that's our system. Anyhow, Dave Carter, and during council comments, I'll bring that up. We can't bring that up here because the law doesn't allow us to do it, but I will bring it up. And thank you very much. Councilman Nick and I attended on a Saturday night. It was a great affair. And I believe I owe you some money, and take your time trying to collect it. Ms. Patel, I'm really sorry about what happened, and if I could ask the chief to keep me in line with what's going on with her case and the follow-up on that. So I'll personally try to follow up on that for you. I'm sorry we didn't do as good a job as it sounds like we should have, but I'm sure if the chief is on it now, you'll get top-notch service. Andy O'Connor, is he here? God bless Andy O'Connor. Andy O'Connor needs to be on the staff, really. He needs to get a salary. He does so many things, drives me crazy, sends me, if not daily, several times a week, stuff that's going on in the city. And thank you so much for what you do and how many things you point out, and you know how much better the city can be because of your efforts. And I know sometimes that may bug people, but the bottom line is you're spending a lot of time making the city better, and very few people like you at all. So thank you very much for your efforts. Bob, I spoke with somebody on the Mission. I didn't get a chance to tell you. I did speak to somebody on the Mission Viejo City Council, and they are going to see whether or not they could pick up that second thing at Aliso at the creek. So that would be great if they follow through, and I just didn't get a chance to tell you on that. And Jerry, I forgive you, but I never... Where is Jerry? You're forgiven, but I never considered that you injured me. You know, when we're up here, part of the job here is that people come up and they say stuff. And, I don't, although I'm sure nobody likes to hear negative things or non-complimentary things, but if you weren't prepared to take it, you wouldn't be up here in the first place. So I don't think any of you ever injured any of us by what you say, and certainly not if it's well-intentioned criticism, and you're not happy, and that's what we're here for. So thank you.
If I may quickly, Ms. Batella, I'm confident Chief will be personally or through his great staff will be in touch with you in the days to come, and we'll do what it takes to ensure that you're protected and you're taken care of and your problems are addressed. I'm sorry you went through that experience. You had that experience. Dave, it was great to see you Saturday, Mr. Carter. Jim and I, Dr. Gardner and I, will try to agendize exactly what you said, and I'll be in touch with you in the next couple of days before the end of the week, and we'll take it from there. Thank you for the event Saturday. Thank you for putting it together. I know it's a lot of work. Mr. O'Connor, Andy, I just second everything Dr. Gardner said. You're an asset to the community. Hopefully you won't have to do as much, because we're going to get this right, hopefully soon. But as long as we haven't, I'm glad I have you to report to us our failures. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And Jerry, I don't know where you are, but, okay. I cannot be upset with you even if you tried. I didn't know about you having spoken unkindly. I'm sure at the time you thought what you were saying was correct. I know your heart is in the right place. That's all that matters. Of course, I accept the apology, but an apology is not even in order. You're a friend. You're a mentor. You're like a big brother to me. So, but if I have let you down, if I have done something that you thought at the time or still think was not right or righteous, by all means, please do let me know. We're not perfect. I am certainly not perfect. I can learn. I can improve. So if there's anything that I failed to do or I did and I shouldn't have done, please consider it a favor to me and just tell me, educate me, and I promise you I will continue to get better and to be someone that you always are comfortable with and hopefully proud of. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
I agree. I think the chief of police is going to discuss your issue and definitely get back to you. So thank you for mentioning that to us, and thank you all the other speakers for coming tonight. So we'll move on to the consent calendar, which is warrant register, item number 5. I'll entertain motions.
Move item I, consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, if you can cast your votes.
That motion carries unanimously.
Which leads us to the consent calendar miscellaneous. This is items number 6 through 19. We had any,
Number 13.
number 13? All right, I'll entertain motions on the
18 and 19.
I'll move the remainder of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
If you can cast your votes.
That motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 13, resolution approving site development permit 10-15-4843 for the development of 58 multi-family housing units, 10,000 square feet of commercial space, site improvements, and an alternative site development standard for height for an architectural tower projection in the Portola Center development, submitted by Director of Development Services and removed from the consent calendar by a member of the public. David Hertzberg.
Welcome.
I'm David Hersberg, and I've been a resident of Portola Hill for 26 years. And I know how you're going to vote on this, but I want to at least go down on record. I like going down with the ship. This is a tale of two cities. I went over to Irvine today. There's a place called Solera, 210 units of senior affordable housing. And you know what? Every single one has a patio or a balcony. They also have swimming pools. They have a workout room. It looks like an apartment complex. Mr. Robinson, I don't have a problem with the Baldwin's building. I understand property rights. I've been involved in this process since the opportunities. I've been to meetings way before I ever saw you. But this building doesn't belong in Portola Hills, and it doesn't belong to people. Do you know that you can see the solstice, the winter solstice, and the summer solstice? You see sunsets every single day on that piece of property. And we are confining people to rooms of 525 to 550 feet. And if you listen to the gentleman who's running the place, a lot of those rooms are going to have 2 people. The thing looks like a Hampton Inn. The trees aren't going to hide it, especially the small ones that the Baldwins are going to plant. It's going to take 20 years to hide the thing. This is not a building for people. None of us asked for the 10,000 feet of retail. I still don't know where the retail came from. All I asked when I went to the Planning Commission and I went to these other meetings is we build something human for real people. Yeah, these people are poor. And I heard a lot of things that bordered on economic racism, both at the Planning Commission by some of the people. I'm not going to get into this. Poor people don't have cars. Poor people put out things on their balconies. Well, you know what I saw in Irvine today? I saw plants, people sitting, and their doors open with the air coming in, and a few barbecues. It's a horrible building, and I just want to go down on record. In 4 years, we're all going to be here repurposing the 10,000 feet of square footage that nobody's going to rent with all the restrictions that have been put on it. And I want to be in the permanent record on this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, which I guess will bring back any other public speakers.
There have been no further requests.
So we'll bring it back to the council.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I couldn't agree with you more. On the other hand, that development agreement was done years ago, and, we were stuck with it. It brings up the importance, and that's just the way it is. And had we voted against it, we'd be sitting on a lawsuit right now and for millions of dollars and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a lawsuit, because in the past, a previous planning commission and a previous council said okay on it. What I want to bring up is that's the importance, and I know when I'm talking to Dave, I'm talking to the choir, but to everybody else. What they do at the Planning Commission and the Parks Commission, what we do up here, has consequences down the road. It's really important for us to stay involved and to speak up at the time. The time to have killed that project was 3 or 4 years ago, before the development agreement was approved. The time to kill the next project that's bubbling up somewhere and is going to show up in the Planning Commission, time to kill that one, if it's a bad one, is this year, because in 4 or 5 years, it will become a reality. So, these kinds of problems, I hated to vote in favor of that, but there just was no legal consequence. If there's a lesson there for all of us, it's that we have to be proactive and we need to be involved in what's happening in the commissions and at the council early on so we can stop these things from happening down the line. Thank you.
My objections to this project are already on the record. 3 weeks ago tonight, I elaborated and articulated that I didn't think the nature and the size of this project was suitable for the community. My second objection was that I wanted to know what the 3 seasoned planning commissioners, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Carter, and Mr. Hughes, meant when they had said that it needed to be fixed. I wanted to know what they meant by that, and I wanted it fixed. So I lost 4-1 on this. I'll lose again tonight, 4-1. If somebody's interested in my comments, which are essentially what I just said, just greater details, they're online. Somebody reported the entire event. So if you Google Portola Hills, the project, the Baldwin project, it just comes up and you can see what I said. At this point, for the sake of time, I won't repeat myself. Thank you for listening.
Any other comments, questions? If not, I'll entertain motions.
I'll move the item.
I'll second. Please cast your votes.
That motion passes 4-1 with Councilmember Nick opposed. Agenda item 18, notice of completion for Saddleback Ranch Road Street Improvement Project, Public Works 2013.18, submitted by Director of Public Works City Engineer and removed from the consent calendar by Councilmember Gardner.
The only question I had there, and it's probably my inability to read the report correctly, what I was looking for in there was what the cost of the, for want of a better word, I'm going to say fiasco. You know what I mean? The remodeling. So there was a cost to that, and I couldn't find it in there. It seemed like, and that's probably my fault, but can you give me a figure that says, because we stopped and redid and that cost us an extra?
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. Change Order 2 was what we had originally asked City Council members when we came, before we had the complete design completed. City Council authorized us to spend up to $69,000 on that change order. If you look at the bottom of the discussions, Change Order 3.
Page 206.
Thank you. So after we met with the HOA group and we were able to make the changes that the community wanted, and we reached really that compromise, if you will, it was $31,153.05. It's at the bottom of CCO number 3. It was the amount of money that we actually spent on those changes.
Can you repeat that one more time?
$31,153 And that was to make those changes that the community wanted after we had started construction. It was about under half of what our estimate, so that was the good news, and certainly, I believe, a better project for the overall community up there.
That's what I thought it was, but it was so far underneath, I thought I must be reading it wrong. That's why I wanted to ask to be absolutely sure. Okay, thank you. I had no other questions.
With that, I'll move item number 18.
I'll second. Please cast your votes.
That motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 19, agreement with the County of Orange for law enforcement services submitted by city manager and removed from the consent calendar by Councilmember Gardner.
Okay. I had one question which I've brought up before at different times, and which raises its head again in the current report. And this is the crime statistics, and we have a chart that shows us 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. And it's the crime rate for the different cities.
Sorry, what page are you on?
You know, I'm in the appendix, probably the third appendix. What might show up as it probably shows up as the third attachment, but the second appendix.
Just so I can follow along.
Crime statistics.
I believe it's page 222, Mayor and Council.
Appendix 1.
Yeah, we have there are two funny systems. The one system is the system which we all see on the web, but the council gets a different system, which is one big long report. Saves a lot of money and makes it a lot easier. So they get just one big long thing, but then I work off what everybody else looks at, and that means sometimes we don't sync up on the same pages.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
So I'm looking at what you look at. It's the same thing, but theirs is numbered differently. Anyhow, when you do crime stats, I used to do crime stats when I worked with the police in Australia and also in Ohio. And this is just purely informational for everybody except for the chief, who knows this. When you do crime rate statistics are a funny thing when it comes to certain kinds of cities. And these are largely the tourist cities. Tourist cities seem to show up badly on crime statistics, largely because a crime statistic is based on crime for your population. So we have 70,000 or 80,000 people in the city, and then you divide that, you times it by 1,000, you come up with a number. But the tourist cities like Laguna Beach, Dana Point, San Clemente, or certain kinds of commercial cities like Irvine, who gets twice as many people in the city as their normal population, or Newport Beach that might get 3 or 4 times the population in a single day. Those cities show up very badly in crime statistic reports because there's more people in those cities, but you still divide it by the number of population in the cities. And I hope that explains what I'm going to say next. What I'm going to say next is I'm looking at our neighboring cities, but not the beach, the cities that aren't beach cities, the cities that aren't the tourist cities, just our cities. And by those I mean Rancho, Aliso, Laguna Woods, which is a funny city because there's so many old people. When you have a lot of old people, you generally have less crime. Laguna Niguel, Mission Viejo, and Laguna Hills. And this keeps coming up year and year, and it's come up again. When I look at the 7 cities, you might call it our neighborhoods, the center of South Orange County. When I look at those in 2012, we had the highest crime rate. In 2013, excluding the beach cities, we had the highest crime rate. In 2014, excluding the beach cities and Yorba Linda, which is up north, we had the highest. So amongst our cohort, 3 years in a row, we had the highest crime rate of any other city. And now in 2015, we did a little better. Laguna Hills had more crime than us. We were 6 out of 7. And I've never been one. I've always been what they call type A personalities. I always wanted to be first or second or something like that. And I'm just wondering, why are we, it's kind of an open question to anybody, I guess it's the chief, but anyway, why do we do so badly? And why is our crime so high when we compare ourselves to Mission Viejo or Laguna Hills or Aliso Viejo and Niguel? What could we be doing better? It's not that that crime rate per se is so high. We don't live in South Central. Nobody has to go borrow my shotgun or my .45 to take home tonight. So it's not that we're in danger, but why aren't we as good as everybody else? Why are we consistently at the end of the line? So that's my question, Chief, if you have any, or anybody else, any help on that.
Mayor and council members, like you said, Councilman Gardner, there's many factors that affect the crime rate, from being a tourist city to demographics, the population, what brings people into a city, and things like that. As far as the crime rate for the city of Lake Forest, as you say, it's not that things are so bad, but you're asking why aren't we doing better? And when I look at the numbers that are in the staff report for take 2015 for example, at 12.7 crimes, Part 1 crimes for every 1,000 residents. When you look at the outliers of those that are close to us, Mission Viejo is 12.13. That's less than one person per 1,000 residents. And most of those are very close together, with the exceptions of Rancho Santa Margarita and Aliso Viejo. Those are no more than 5 people per 1,000. 5 crimes per 1,000 people. But when you look at it over the time frame of the city's history, 2015, though there was an increase in the number of crimes that were committed, it's still the 3rd lowest year over the last 21-year history of the city. You go back through the uniform crime reports and go back as far as it goes back to 1995, and 2013 and 14 are the 2 lowest years, and 2015 is the 3rd lowest year. When you look at violent crime and property crime, yes, those things were up for 2015. But when you look at them over the course of a period of time, for instance, violent crime was up 2.9%, and property crime was up 33% from 2014. However, when compared over the last 4 years, violent crime was down 1% and property crime was down 16.5%. So it all depends on how you compare it. There are things we can always do better. Things that we're doing now to address the increase in crime is we put out more awareness through social media, crime prevention specialists. We try to spread the word and public education through those avenues on how people can protect themselves. We have crime analysis to help us pinpoint where crimes are happening in the city. We're bringing specialty details like the directed enforcement team or SET teams to help us with enforcement actions. And these are the things we do. We communicate with city chiefs from the other cities, and they're experiencing similar crime trends. As we move forward, I don't want to sit here and say everything is built because of Prop 47. The sheriff has not taken an official stance on that, whether that's affecting the crime rate. She's waiting for comprehensive studies to be done on that. But the bottom line is that Prop 47 has changed the rules and how policing is done. And as we adjust our methods and try to combat that, we work collaboratively with the Sheriff's Department and other agencies and things like that to get the job done.
Yeah, my worry is not so much, my worry is that we're always at the bottom. Is there any chance, do you know, or I guess then could we find out, is it that these other cities have more officers on the ground than we do? Is that why their crime rate is lower? Is that, or do you know that? Or is there
I don't have information in front of me as far as how many deputies are in each city. When you look at those charts the population for each city is vastly different. Rancho Santa Margarita is just under 50,000. We're at 80,000. The population figures this is just straight population and Part 1 crimes. It's not taking into account the number of officers or things like that on the street. If I had it my way, I'd put a deputy on every corner, but I don't think that's very cost effective. As the city builds and develops out and the population increases, I am currently working on a population study, or I'm sorry, a workload study to address the staffing issues, to see if we need to increase staffing. So we have data to back that up. That's in the process, and we'll be bringing that back at a later time. But those are things that we're doing to try to address the crime rate. For the first quarter of this year, I would tell you the crime stats have started to drop. Is that going to be a continual trend? I'd like to think so. Can I pinpoint any one thing that's the cause of that? I can't. But the last 2 months, we've had a 9% drop in the crime from just last year, 4% in April and 5% in May. It doesn't help Ms. Patel when she's still a victim of a burglary, but we try to handle each case individually and to the best of our ability, and to keep moving forward and spread the word and educate people how to protect themselves.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, we've changed the website, so the website is more informative on giving you crime stats and things like that. Okay, yeah, like I say, I'm a type A personality, so I like to be the lowest or the highest, but not the highest when the lowest is better. That's all I have.
I'll move item 19, but I'd like to say that I like to think this because of the Saddleback substation we have here in Lake Forest.
I'll second. I would just say that if you look at us just in the statistics, we're getting better comparatively. I mean, we're at the middle on page 222 in 2000.
Well, we went from 7th to 6th out of 7, so that is better.
Yeah, but if you want to go back to 2012, we've gone up at least like 4 or 5 spots.
No, not really, because, again, I've taken out the beach.
I'm just looking at the page. 223 on 2012.
This is why I tried to give you a very brief education about how you read crime stats. But
no, I understood it.
Okay.
And if you look at Mission Viejo and Laguna Niguel, we're within 1. I mean, we could be 5th very easily in 2015.
Yeah, and let Mission Viejo, with a population much greater than ours, should, by all rights, have a much higher crime rate, because generally speaking, more population means more crime rate. So the fact that Mission Viejo is under us is an anomaly just in and of itself. But, we're not going to solve that here. It's just the way it is.
I think their property values are probably a little higher, and they're a newer community. I think there's all sorts of things that can explain why Mission Viejo, I would think, would probably be a little bit lower on the Part 1 crimes per 1,000 residents. We have a much older community, especially up against the freeway. And I think, there's all sorts of, we could spend a lot of time tonight talking about it, and I think we all have educated rationale, but I think saying that Lake Forest is at the bottom is just not really accurate.
A couple of questions for the chief, because as I'm looking at this, the last, whatever this is, 4 or 5 years time frame, the top 3 there are Rancho Santa Margarita, Aliso Viejo, and Laguna Woods. I make assumptions, but I'd like to hear your comments. So Laguna Woods is essentially a gated city from the residential standpoint. They have a little bit of retail outside the gates. Does that tend to be have a significant impact on crime rates when a city's gated?
Mayor and council members, obviously, gated communities have security and things like that. At some points, we're talking specifically Laguna Woods, that would have an impact. They do experience crime. It might just be a different type of crime. That's not a Part 1 level type crime. However, generally, if you look at areas even within Lake Forest, those communities that are gated would have a lower crime rate within that gated community because it's just more difficult to get in there.
Okay.
But knowing that any determined criminal would be able to jump a wall or hop a fence.
Sure. Understood. And they could be landscapers coming in, they could, a
Correct.
lot of different things. So, but I was just kind of wondering from a macro standpoint. You might not be able to answer this, maybe you can, but proximity to freeway, does that have an impact? Like I know RSM, I would say they don't have a freeway, they have a toll road that goes through their town, so you have to pay to go on it. So it probably has a little different demographic than an actual freeway, but does freeway access have some impact on crime?
Mayor and council members, yes, it does. The ease of which criminals can come in and out of a community to commit their crime and get out without being detected is a factor. It's not the sole factor, but it is a factor that you look at when you look at communities and try to do comparisons and things like that. The toll road, the freeway, we got them on both sides of us. And it provides for an easy escape route.
Okay. And then just one last question. With respect to north-south movement, I mean, without getting into too many stereotypes, I mean, I know the facts kind of speak to it, but there's more crime essentially in the northern part of the county. Is that fair to say?
That would be a fair statement.
Okay.
When we look at those statistics that are provided in the staff report for the last 4 years, and you see that top 10 comparison where Dr. Gardner is referring to where 6th, 7th, or 8th, or 9th on those years, one must put that in comparison that's out of 34 cities within the county. So those are the top 10 for all 4 years out of the entire county, not just the Sheriff's Department jurisdiction. So when we see that for instance, in 2015, Lake Forest is about 7th down on the list. That's 7 out of 34 cities within the county, not 7 out of 10. We just provided the top 10. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, and I appreciate that because I was kind of wondering why Irvine showed up in a couple of them and then dropped off on another. So Irvine essentially was, it looks like, number 10 in the county for 12, 13, and 14, and then here in 15, they're either 11 or lower. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And the reason why I was asking the north-south question, I would like to learn a little bit more about it, is just more a lot of crime is occurring in the northern part of the county, and then when you get outside the county, there's even more crime north of Orange County. And so I think this might be the answer to one of those questions. I have the same questions that you do, and I've made some assumptions based on that, so that's why I'm just trying to fill in the blanks, and I've done that throughout the last few years. But I think that the further north that we are in the county, so we're the furthest north, you can say Laguna Hills is kind of on par with us, but you start getting closer to what I consider to be more of the crime center of Orange County. So, I mean, I'm making some assumptions here, but based on some facts that there's a lot more crime in the northern part of the county. And then when you get into the south part here, you've got this natural barrier that Camp Pendleton provides. So, I mean, Oceanside has a lot of crime, but when you've got to drive 20 miles to get to the next county, or whatever it is, 15 miles, then there's this natural buffer that starts to occur there. It doesn't mean that it can't, but they probably have some that crosses county lines there. But in reading some of the news stories and reading some of your reports that you send us from time to time, some of the more serious that would probably fall into these Part 1 crimes, more often than not, I find is someone who's come from the northern part of the county down right off El Toro Road, and there's been a holdup or a burglary or something like that. And so, that's where I'm extrapolating some of this from. But, again, I have the same questions that you do.
What you reminded me of something that happened.
Hold on, I think
I'm sorry.
I think he's still.
It's all right. I wanted to find. I have a few other questions.
Okay. You reminded me of something that happened a couple of years ago when my HOA wanted to put in, this is before Tom came on board, my HOA wanted to put in a gated community, a gate in one of their sections. And they came to the city, and the city, you don't have, you're missing 3 feet or something like that. So the city kind of played hardball and didn't make the process easy, so the HOA kind of let it die. But that might be something, we could consider. If we're reasonably sure that, because criminals looking for the easiest thing to do. If there's a gate, it's harder than maybe they go Mission View or Lincoln Hills. So maybe that's something we could do a little more proactively with the idea of, allowing HOAs to do, and so maybe they're 2 feet shorter than they might be, but we would let it because of its the positive effects it has on crime, if we're reasonably sure that, because there are a whole bunch of gated communities here in the city and some that aren't gated. And if that's the case, then that's something we as a city could do to encourage HOAs that are able to do a gate and therefore see, at least in that particular neighborhood, a drop in crime. Those are the kinds of things I'm trying to get, what could we do reasonably, easily, without putting a patrolman on every corner, and yet still get some bang for our buck.
And I appreciate that 100%, and I know that there may be some instances that we want to take a look at. I know that there's a struggle that goes on, and the struggle can be between uniformed personnel. So as much as you probably love a gated community, Chief Adams probably hates it because now you've got a fire truck that's trying to get into. I understand, but it's just a little bit more cumbersome. Traffic could back up there. They're also quite challenged by speed bumps, so they have some benefit to the community, absolutely, from slowing down traffic in a neighborhood, but also slow down public safety equipment being able to respond quickly. So they're good conversations to have. I appreciate everything you're saying there. So one last question that I have, I promise I don't want to drill you too much, but I might ask some questions after the meeting as well, or later this week. But I was wondering what effect Prop 47 is actually having on our overall crime statistics. So is that causing crime numbers to rise? So citations, things like that, is that causing Part 2 to rise, or is it causing a number to drop because it's more of a catch and release? And what kind of impacts that having? I share the same philosophy that a lot of people have, that's one of the reasons why we're experiencing across the state a crime increase. And I think that the facts will end up proving it out. But we're all waiting for those numbers. But I'm just wondering if that's, at this point, if it's driving certain numbers up because we're citing more, but we're not putting them away for 72 hours or whatever it might be, or if it's driving it down because we're not doing anything at all.
Mayor and council members, I can only speak as to what I see in Lake Forest, as the sheriff is not going to come out and publicly blame Prop 47 for the increase in crime until the partnership with UCI and that study is complete. However, I can tell you of just one individual that I know of right now. There's multiple, but I'll just discuss this one individual who had 7 open cases with the courts, 4 citations, and 3 warrants for his arrest, and he's still not in custody. Okay, so he had several open cases that he was cited and released on, right back into the community, and he's gone out there continuing to commit crime within our city. And by the time that last 7th citation was issued, the others started to go to warrant through the court process, and now he's what you would say on the run. But that's minimum of 7 crimes that we know of that he's committed, that had we had him in custody after the first time, he would be in custody, not out there committing more crime in our community. Does Prop 47 affect the crime? Yes, which crimes, I cannot speak to that because I can't interject and predict what crimes individuals are going to commit. It affects both Part 1 and Part 2 crimes, depending on what they're doing. But the bottom line is, another hypothetical type example is if we catch somebody shoplifting at the Walmart and we have them in our custody, we just write them a citation and they can go right on down the strip mall there to Target and do it again and try to steal the item that they couldn't get at Walmart. And if they're unsuccessful there, they can go to another store because there's nothing that allows us to physically arrest that person based on the new law in Prop 47.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the answer. And I know Carlo's not here tonight, so, and if I start deviating off the topic too much, Mr. City Manager, or City Attorney, I'd appreciate it if you'd let me know. But are we aware of any legislation in Sacramento at this point to try to close some of these loops? Like, I'm guessing this wasn't the intent, was to let somebody have, I think you said 7, 7 citations or whatever they might be, at one time. So are we aware of any legislation to try to close that?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Council, I'm not aware of any particular legislative modifications being suggested yet or put into a bill. I do know, however, because I think the chief referred to it, that the sheriff is currently in a study with UCI to try and look at what those causes are. And I think until there's some relationship they can point to, it might be more difficult to get legislation. But I also know that the Cal Chiefs, I believe the Sheriff's Association in the states, looking at these issues. So you might see something in the long term, but it's hard to say right when that might occur. And I don't believe I am familiar with, nor would Carlo necessarily, but if the council's interested, we can certainly do a query and see if anything comes up that maybe is pending that we're not aware of and let you know. Okay. But there is clearly the issue that the chief has indicated, and there is, I think, an issue eventually that the cities collectively may want to look at in terms of manpower at some point. To address that upsurge in Prop 47, because the criminals don't necessarily care whether they're in Mission Viejo or Lake Forest. And so they cross borders. Consequently, it's not one city that can necessarily do that. It's probably more of a collective effort. And so at some point, I know there might be some suggestions as to what we might do to try to address and just target those if it is Prop 47 related, even if there's not legislation to deal with it.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And to that point, I think we recently had some of those smash and grab burglaries that affected, Lake Forest, Mission Viejo, and it just kind of worked their way south. So, I mean, I know that's circumstantial or anecdotal evidence, but
it certainly is the case. I think they ended up down in San Juan Capistrano. The chief could probably speak more to this particular issue, but yes, there was a group that was doing the smash and grabs there at with commercial burglaries through the South County, and they were caught eventually. I don't know if they got citations or what they might have gone to jail, I hope, but who knows.
And I just was going to mention, I know we have a motion in a second, but I had a ride-along this last weekend. It was a phenomenal experience, and lots of great people in the city. We did see it was relatively quiet. I think another circumstantial or I can't think of the word I just said, anecdotal, thank you, evidence, but there were multiple catch and release occasions that we experienced over those 7-8 hours that I was on the ride-along. So with that, I think we have a motion. I was just going to say, too, that if you take out the beach cities, you kind of have to take out the end-of-the-line cities like Rancho with no major freeway access, which would include Aliso. They only have toll roads. And Laguna Woods, which is a gated community. We always can improve with crime, but we just have some neighbors that are extremely low.
Mayor Hamilton, during the course of council discussion, we received a request to speak, and since this item was pulled from the consent calendar, it'd be appropriate to hear from the public. Sure. Andrew O'Connor.
Welcome again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I notice Mr. Voigt's left. I hope he's not because I'm here. Okay. I appreciate Dr. Gardner's statistics. I think they're very clearly presented. What I want to speak on right now is bring to the residents of Lake Forest, are they aware that in 2015 we gave the Orange County Sheriff's Department $900,000? $900,000. We didn't get one more patrol officer. We didn't get one more patrol car. I don't think we got one more bullet. And now they're coming to the well in 2016 asking for $385,000 with no promise of a deputy or a patrol car or another bullet. I think we have a leadership problem at the top with Sandra Hutchins. Let's go back to the high-profile escape from the Orange County Jail that wasn't executed correctly. Have we found the AR-15 that fell off the top of the deputy's car in Aliso Viejo? Have we? We haven't. But yeah, we have this big, monstrous sheriff's department. We need $385,000 next year. To me, yeah, I'm an armchair quarterback, but when I see a resident come up and say the house is burglarized and the procedure that was done was not done correctly, okay? When I see 6 officers at Panera Bread in January and you said they're not following procedures and just Monday they repeat again at IHOP, when I see motorcycle cops pulling over minimum wage people to get a turn lane thing, we have a leadership problem, and we're just going to roll right over and give the county $385,000 more. It's just what we're going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. We have a problem with the leadership of this department. It starts at the top. And yeah, I think we need to put a cop in every corner. And as you alluded to, the smash and grab, how does 7 retail stores get smashed into and our police department doesn't even know about it? To me, the $385,000, I'd rather give to a security firm and put them on in the neighborhoods where you have the data where crime is happening. And when they see it, they radio to you and come out and do the big work. Right now, our sheriff's department is a reactionary department. The statistics shows crimes are going up. We're not reacting what's happening right underneath our nose. We can't take care of a simple burglary. Our deputies are not following policy. What's going on here, Mayor and City Council? But make me, as a taxpayer, fork over $385,000 more after I just gave you $900,000 last year and crime's going up? And on the weekends, I drive over Rancho. What do I see out there? I see 40 cars sitting out there. I counted them myself. Why do we have 40 cars sitting over that substation? It's ludicrous. You've got marked and unmarked cars. Just do the math. Those $60,000, $70,000 per car times 4, that's $2.8 million, sir. Why do we have so many cars sitting right there? We're off the top of the bat.
Thank you for your comments. All right, I think we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, let's cast our votes.
This motion carries unanimously.
A little recess? Yeah. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess. All right, I think we want to, I'm hearing from colleagues here, maybe let's do the Agenda 20 and then take a little break. All right, 5 minutes. We'll take a little 5-minute break. bring it back together. We'll come together right now. All right, we're back at agenda item 20.
Agenda item 20, recognition of the Ad Hoc Citizens Traffic Advisory Group, members and presentation of CTAC recommendations, submitted by Director of Public Works, City Engineer.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Tonight we have a two-part staff report. First part is just recognizing the CTAG members and the hard work that they put in the last several months, and then presenting the findings of the group to the council members. So what I'd like to do first is just introduce Dave Rogers, our traffic engineering manager. Dave did a really an outstanding job guiding the CTAG, put in a lot of extra effort with the reports, responding to the many different ideas that we had, writing the numerous reports. So I'd asked, with the mayor's permission, perhaps we introduce the CTAG members that are here. I see 4 that are here tonight, so we have a quorum. And introduce them. We have some certificates, and maybe we do that, and then Dave can lead us through the bulk of the presentation.
Absolutely.
That sounds good. So we have the members that are here. Mark Amanda and Grady Glover, John Irish, and Don Stoll. So if they want to come forward. The members that were not able to make it tonight was Scott Drapkin, Tim Redwine, and Derek Weiss that were also members. Mark, of course, got pulled up to varsity halfway through and was able to move on to the Planning Commission. Going alphabetical on it. All right. I know. So again, thank you all very much. And that looks like we're going to get
Mayor, council members, I just wanted to do a personal thank you to the CTAG members. A very good group of people to work with. Challenged us in many ways and asked for a lot of things, but I think it was appropriate for them to do so. They listened attentively. They read their reports. They did everything we asked them to do, and were very interactive in throughout the entire process. So again, from a staff perspective, we couldn't have asked for more from a group of citizens to help us out. So again, a personal thank you as a primary staff member for them to have helped us in so many ways. Tonight I'm just going to briefly kind of go over some of the information in the report tonight, and then obviously provide an opportunity for the council to have a discussion following my presentation. So with that, I'll get started here. In April 2015, the City Council approved the formation of the Citizens Traffic Advisory Group, officially known as CTAG, and recommended 3 broad areas of discussion for this group. First being community input, the second being traffic signal operation, coordination, and communication, and the third being intersection and roadway improvement strategies. Along with the general discussion parameters, the City Council also adopted a mission statement to guide the CTAG's efforts, which is to provide recommendations to the City Council regarding overall strategies and processes to improve long-term traffic conditions throughout the city, including how to provide future citizen participation without creating another permanent layer of bureaucracy. In August of 2015, the City Council appointed 7 CTAG members, 4 of which were here tonight, and the CTAG held a total of 8 meetings between August 2015 and April 2016. The meetings generally covered a single major topic, such as traffic signal operations or traffic modeling, or in one case, communications. As part of their first meeting, staff suggested that the CTAG members provide us with a list of specific items that they wish to review or discuss as a group, because we could tell each of them had a passion about certain things, and we wanted to make sure that they had that opportunity right up front to kind of go ahead and help us understand some of the concerns and thoughts that they had. So these issues range from broad topics such as the status of the extension of Portola Parkway to minor operational issues at individual traffic signals. At the conclusion of the CTAG meeting, the list actually contained a total of 50 individual items, which is attachment 1 to your report tonight. And included, for example, signal timing adjustments at 10 separate intersections, modification of signing and striping to enhance safety at one location, and modifying landscaping to improve sight distance at one location. Staff either resolved or answered all the inquiries posed by the CTAG as part of that process. The CTAG also compiled a list of 46 recommendations for your consideration. The recommendations can generally be categorized into 3 basic types: best practices, capital outlays, and capital projects. Overall, the CTAG's recommendations included 36 that we categorize as best practices, 6 as categorized as capital outlay, and 4 as capital projects. Of the 36 best practices or best practice recommendations, 33 could be described generally as affirming existing practices, and included items such as continuing to use our 2-year CIP as a planning tool for near-term traffic and transportation projects, continuing to update the Lake Forest traffic model at appropriate intervals to identify the timing of the improvements and to identify other potential projects, and continuing to adapt our methods of communication with residents and businesses as needs and preferences change. As a result of the discussions, the CTAG concluded that the city has generally been pursuing appropriate paths in the areas of traffic, transportation, and communication. The CTAG actually did develop a list of 10 new recommendations. The recommendations are highlighted in the body of your report. In the staff's narrative for each is in italics. And I'll just list off a quick couple here just for more for the audience sake than anyone else. But under best practices, for instance, they suggested that we review the potential use of camera equipment for the sole purpose, very important qualifier there, of monitoring and improving traffic flow. Specifically, they were interested in perhaps putting those down near the freeway, some of our intersections there, to help us kind of monitor what's going on, not on an ongoing basis in terms of someone sitting there, but just have access to that video feed in case we had a situation down there that we felt we needed to review and could deal with fairly quickly. A second best practice was to consider maintaining an ongoing forum of some type where residents can discuss traffic and transportation-related issues. Under our capital outlay section, they suggested that we conduct biennial, every other year, peak hour traffic counts at our intersections in our Lake Forest traffic model area and other select locations to aid in tracking and identifying changes in traffic conditions. That would be in addition to our annual or average daily traffic counts that we do. Again, trying to gather that data to help guide us in terms of projects and timing of Lifton projects and other things. Another capital outlay that they suggested the council consider was the acquisition of a traffic collision analysis program, GIS compatible, in order to enable for the staff to conduct an annual citywide collision review and other reviews where traffic collision information is necessary. A very important tool coming from a practitioner in there in terms of trying to understand what's happening throughout your city. You can, with these programs, you can actually compare intersections. You can figure out where your highest top 10 collision locations are, and can focus your efforts on seeing if there's situations or conditions that you perhaps may need to address. Under capital projects, just a couple listed out of that, the 10 new. Evaluate the city's need and review a possible upgrade to adaptive signal control. Right now, most of our signal coordination timing is what we call time-based. It assumes a group of cars is coming by, and in essence, it's blind. It doesn't really see what's going on. The next generation of traffic control is adaptive signal control, where through loop detection and other methods, the individual signals in the system can actually see and sense the change in traffic patterns and can adjust the timing on the fly to help better move things along. So that's where we're all headed, but we're not there yet, and it's a fairly expensive process to undertake, but they felt that was an important goal for us to be looking forward towards. And then finally, under those 10, just kind of a summary of some of them was direct staff to look into the feasibility of adding a dedicated right turn lane and signal optimization at the intersection of Bake Parkway and Trabuco Road with minimal impact to property owners. That intersection has been one of discussion a lot, and the group did spend quite a bit of time discussing that and the use of the different lanes, and that's where they came to their conclusion in terms of a recommendation. As noted earlier, the majority of the CTAG's recommendations represent current best practices, programs, or projects currently underway. Should the City Council desire to pursue any of the new recommendations, staff would include the selected items either in a future CIP or annual operating budget for the Public Works Department, and provide detailed budgetary analysis relative to the estimated cost for the desired items. In summary, our staff will continue its current best practices that were affirmed by the CTAG and obviously move towards implementing and incorporating any new best practices as directed and as appropriate by the Council.
Thank you. Have we had any public speakers? Okay. So that brings us back to the Council for questions, comments.
It's been a backup on Bake Parkway at Trabuco because of the lack of a right turn dedicated lane. Is that something that we at one time in the city had?
The lane assignments were changed, and before I got here, I've been here a little less than 2 years. Somewhere before that, the traffic dynamics changed, and the decision was made to take what was previously two, I called Bake East and West. If you don't agree with me, we can have that conversation. But I consider Bake to be East and West. Eastbound or into the city on Bake at Trabuco used to be 2 through lanes and 1 fully dedicated right turn lane. You could only make right turns there. At some point in the past, based on the traffic conditions, it was decided to turn the number 3 or the right turn only lane into a through right lane, which is the current condition out there. And so I think that's been a topic of conversation at various levels within the city here, and it was staff's belief and ultimately the CTAG's recommendation that you probably need all of it. You need the 3 through lanes and the dedicated right turn lane at that location.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if I could, because I do have a little bit of history. The intersection as it functions now was designed just like that. It was designed to have that very right lane to go through as well as turn right. And then it was changed to a right only. It incredibly backed up traffic in morning commutes all along Bake Parkway, virtually all the way to the railroad tracks. Yes, it did.
Morning?
In the mornings, right? No, mornings. So it was changed to its original design to alleviate the backup that was pretty tremendous. A lot of complaints about that. So now, just to give you that perspective, it was changed a number of years ago, but for that very reason, because it was creating tremendous backup. So the issue, I think now that CTAG is looking at is, well, can you take some right-of-way and design it all? And that's the question I think that we'd have to look at in terms of the cost of acquisition for additional land, where you could widen that. But that's sort of, I guess, going back and forth. Eventually, you're back to where it was originally, but it's causing some backup for right turners because some people want to go straight. But the backup was much worse. Believe me, I experienced it on commutes going that direction on Big Parkway in the mornings.
Okay. One of my other questions was, if you're on, for example, if you're on El Toro Road heading east on El Toro towards the freeway, I'm at El Toro and Chibuco, and we get a green light, and the pack of us get going, and then we get to Geronimo, and because of one car, or at Toledo, one car, the whole light changes, and the whole mob of us come to a stop there at Toledo. Is there any way for the computers to know that there's a group of cars coming from the other? Is that called a time base right now?
That would still be a time-based coordination. I don't know if you recall, but not long ago, the council actually approved an agreement or an application for the city to apply for funding with OCTA to go ahead and look at the coordination again on El Toro Road. That project was approved by OCTA, and we're expecting to get that project started next fiscal year. But to your point, that's exactly the kind of thing we hope to address with this new project that we have coming through there in terms of trying to avoid that. One of the things you're starting to see now, and it changes, on streets like El Toro, in the past you used to coordinate in the morning peak and the afternoon peak, and the rest of the time the signals would run free, and you'd encounter that. More and more we're seeing the need for coordination during more and more hours of the day. Certainly El Toro would probably be the one most likely to have probably almost continuous coordination, at least during the normal hours of days, including Saturdays and potentially Sundays. So those are the kind of things that you'll see us continuing to try to improve upon, because what you're describing is exactly what we're trying to avoid.
Is there a terminology for that? It's almost like you open the cattle gates and the herd comes flying out, and all of a sudden a wolf jumps in the middle, and all of a sudden the whole pack stops.
Yes, that's...
And that one car makes its right turn out, and you're thinking, oh my God.
It certainly leads to driver frustration. We call that group of cars a platoon, but whatever you call it,
platoon?
We're trying not to have them stop in the way in which you're describing.
Okay, and then one of the other things, in the middle of the night between like 12 and 5 in the morning, when you go up El Toro Road and make a left on Northcrest to go into the neighborhood, is there any technology that would allow between those hours to where you'd have a flashing yellow light instead of an automatic stop on the left turn lane? I think it's called Plaza.
Yeah, you're describing some version of a fully protected, which is what we call it now, where you can only turn on the arrow, and a permissive left turn. The CTAG actually did look at that in terms of kind of a citywide approach, and based on some historical information as well as guidelines that were adopted in the county of Orange, they didn't find a lot of locations that they thought would be appropriate for that. There's concerns with high approach speeds, turning across more than 2 lanes, things like that are problematic for that type of operation. So the CTAG recommendation was they don't think that protected permissive left turn phasing. Wow, thank you. Protected permissive left turn phasing is appropriate right now in the city, but they've directed, or one of their recommendations, though, is to have staff look at ways to make that work better. I don't know how it works for you right now, but in the middle of the night, you're on the main street, you're on the left turn. As soon as you pull up on that loop and there aren't any cars there, it should change relatively quickly, within a few seconds.
But if you had light sign to where you're seeing, like if I'm coming up from the freeway towards Chibuco on El Toro Road, I get to Serrano, Toledo, I can see all the way past Chibuco if there's any cars coming, and sometimes you stop and you're thinking, why am I stopping here?
Yeah, part of the problem and part of the concern we have is that you want to be consistent in your message to drivers, and if you're changing it one time from permissive to protected and back and forth like that, you run the risk of potentially having someone make a decision based on an assumption that they thought how that signal was going to operate. So don't get me wrong, there's lots of innovations that occur in the traffic engineering world. I just haven't seen that specific one used in California.
Are there any cities in Orange County that have gone to that?
Protected permissive?
Protected.
There are some that have had it for a very long time. The general findings that we found for the CTAG review was that many cities that had started with fully protected and then tried to back into a protected permissive operation found significant increases in collisions and just a general lack of awareness on the part of drivers who had become so accustomed to just fully protected left turn phasing. So there are cities, Fountain Valley and a few others in the North County and other places that have them, and that they work for them in their environment. But at this time, it really was the conclusion of the CTAG that not in Lake Forest there really aren't any really good candidates right now.
All right. Well, from this councilman's perspective, thank you for the staff. Thank you for you that served in the traffic ad hoc. I'll leave it open.
I think there were so many good things that were a result of this study and a result of the commission, and I look forward to implementing them over the next what period of time it is. And I think if people always personalize traffic, right? Mayor Pro Tem was talking about El Toro, and you just can drive around the city and see some intersections just even if you're at the this is a personal one for me, but even if you're on Toledo in Irvine and you're crossing over Bake, there's 5 lanes on one side and 2, so it's almost a 7-lane entry, if you will, into Lake Forest, where if you turn around and come the other way from Toledo into Irvine from Lake Forest, we only have 5. So there's just all sorts of situations like that where there's additional lanes and things, the right turn pockets. Even on Geronimo, there's just always opportunities, like we're saying here on the corner of Bake and Trabuco. And I've been looking at that. Yep, I don't know. There's got to be some land involved because there's just not enough room. There is a little triangle there that no one can drive in right now, but yeah, we're gonna have to purchase land.
Certainly.
So
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
The part of what the CTAG also recommended, though, was a kind of a very robust data collection process. It will help us identify some of those things, and I think that's important too to keep that in mind. That the more data we have, the more likely we are to identify concerns or conditions, and that creates an opportunity for staff to put together project ideas to address them and to present them to the council.
So again, thank you to everyone for all of your input. I think we're all looking forward to getting better as traffic is concerned. Any other comments?
I wanted you to expand a little bit more on innovations. You mentioned there's a lot of innovative technology when it comes to transportation. With this being your area of expertise, I'm very interested in learning more about what we might be able to implement in the city. Are there things that we're not focusing on right now due to budgetary constraints and things of that nature? I recall it's now probably been about 3 years ago, but former Mayor Herzog, when we were talking about, I think, CIP budget, it might have been just another discussion about transportation, but he felt like, we've done a great job with the sports park. We were moving forward with the Civic Center project, which is still underway. But he said he wanted to see the next focus be, again, yet on transportation. So I'm really interested, anything that you have top of mind right now, and then getting more information on ways in which we can be innovative. A lot of the things that we're discussing today, I'm guessing there's a solution to. I'm guessing that our timers are set for a specific period of time, but they're set that way at least Monday through Friday, probably 7 days a week, even though the traffic varies throughout the day. And I know, like, when we're talking about this Bacon-Trabuco issue, it's clear that I think you're saying eastbound going into Foothill Ranch, that in the morning you've got a lot of commuters that are coming into work, and then at night you have a lot of people coming home who are going to make that right turn on Trabuco. So in the morning you want it to go straight, but in the evening you might not need it to go straight, but you want that dedicated right because the people going straight are now backing it up, and if they were in the 2 lanes, they wouldn't go all the way back to the railroad tracks. It'd be further, obviously, but maybe not so far. And so I'm just kind of interested in what innovations are out there right now, and then we can start taking a look at feasibility from a budgetary standpoint and elsewhere.
Yeah, certainly. One of the primary goals we look to achieve, in the traffic side, is to squeeze as much as we can out of the system that we have before we look at expensive widenings and things like that. So some of the things you just described, not that long ago, traffic signal, coordination plans were AM and PM only and 5 days a week, and recognition that that wasn't quite accomplishing what we were trying to accomplish. So the next iteration to expand it to additional hours and additional days, and those are things that have come through this iterative process, and with fortunately much of the help through OCTA, we've been able to fund a lot of that in terms of making your signals or being able to communicate with your traffic signals. So when there's an issue with a traffic signal, we have monitoring in place so that we can find that. So we're very close to getting all our entire system up onto a monitoring program so we can keep an eye on what's going on out there. The ability to respond quicker is to any issues like that. Having good maintenance contractors is a good step, just to make sure that every time they go out there and look at it and do the preventative maintenance, that they're keeping things operating as well as possible out there. But as I described earlier, again, trying to squeeze what we can out of the system, kind of that next iteration that you see the Federal Highway group kind of pushing all of us towards, and in fact OCTA in many of our meetings has made it very clear to all of the agencies here in Orange County that you need to start looking at this concept of adaptive signal control, because that is really the next generation to help, again, try and squeeze what we can out of the system. The more information the system has, the better it can respond to what's going on out there. And like I said, it's good now, but those types of systems that you see coming down will make it even better in terms of our ability to move traffic. And I don't think anyone is under the illusion that traffic isn't going to continue to increase. Of course it will. And that's why it's important to try to keep ahead of it as much as we can. But again, you've got programs like the LIFTM. It's identified through modeling, has identified quite a few improvements that we're going to need to do at some point in I'll call it the relatively near future in the world of traffic. So all of those combined together is what we need to keep moving forward.
And I appreciate that. I know that the data collection part's a huge component to all of that, and understanding what the problems are from a macro level. So we're having this problem at this intersection on a very repetitive basis, right? And so obviously we want to direct some funds there. I think also on top of that, we need to look at the one-offs. So just give you anecdotal example here.
I'm taking notes.
Yes, but this isn't anything. This is more general. I just want to use this purely as an example. But the day after the last council meeting, I had a meeting in the morning on El Toro Road in Laguna Hills, and a government meeting, and I gave myself 15 minutes from my house to get to Laguna Hills City Hall. Should have taken 7, right? And that particular day, there's an accident almost literally under the freeway, right? And it's blocking, you couldn't go into Laguna Hills on El Toro Road. And so the traffic was backing up. I'm sure by 8:15, it was somewhere around Muirlands, maybe to Geronimo, who knows? But I mean, it was just backing up like crazy. Now, we hope that technology can help solve some of that. Maybe we've got our Waze app going on and it's saying, nope, bad route, don't go that direction. Maybe the private sector is going to deal with that from a certain perspective. But I'm really interested in seeing what we can do when we see these huge one-off problems that are essentially going to affect, in a case like that, maybe like 10% of the city. I don't know, but 10% that are on the road at that moment are going to be affected because major arterial road, I had to get on the 5 North, get off on Lake Forest, and go south to get to Laguna Hills. It was crazy. I understand that's not a problem that you can necessarily solve with, traffic light synchronization, things like that. I think the vast majority of us wouldn't want to see, gigantic boards up, that aren't being used most of the time, but are only being used that one time, and now it's, not aesthetically pleasing to us. But, I'm just, I'd be curious about exploring what types of examples, other cities might be employing so that we can deal with some of that. I hear a lot about accidents at like Bacon Portola. It's a major corner in town. I'm sure that we have a fair amount of those, and so, how can we do a better job of helping redirect traffic in some of those one-off situations? And from the data collection, so that kind of deals with that, and again, you don't have to take any notes, I just wanted to kind of bring that up and use that one example. From the data collection side, I'm curious what we're doing right now. First of all, I should have said this at the beginning, but just want to let each one of the committee members know how much I appreciate the time that you put in. It's a thankless task. You get a nice certificate, but we appreciate you serving the community and providing input. I'm sure that you had a lot of your friends and neighbors who were giving you comments about things, and so that's where these 49 recommendations come from, or 46, whatever it is. Those are great, and it looks like we're trying to address them. The vast majority we're already working on, and now we're looking at the ones that we weren't. I'm curious how many we respond to on an annual basis that come through the ALF program. And I don't know if you have an answer to that right now, but if you don't, I'd just love to get that information in the future. But, how many traffic-related ALF tickets come through every year? Because we don't see them, and I'm guessing it's in the hundreds that you're responding to. Maybe it's in the dozens, I don't know. But that's good to know as well. And I'm guessing, I'm hoping, and would appreciate your feedback there on whether we're like aggregating the comments into this is what we're seeing at this particular corner, or this is what we're seeing in this particular area of the community, and then extrapolating out from there, like, okay, this is something we're working on from a Lifton perspective, or this is something that hasn't been considered now but seems to be a growing issue in this particular part of town. So.
Let me jump into that, and hopefully Dave's got some actual numbers too. I will tell you that we respond to 100% of whatever comes in. And we might know what those numbers are. We get a fair number. Every single traffic item, issue, whatever comes from ALF, from a phone call, from a council meeting, whatever, we respond to. And we'll meet with anybody and, really look out, because it's, there's safety involved, there's liability involved. It's what we do and why we're here. So everything we respond to, and we can get some statistics also. But I'd also like to point out, Dave's the first full-time registered traffic engineer that the city's had. And just by the city investing in that position has created a lot of opportunity, a lot of knowledge that's come into the city, a lot of opportunity has come into the city. So what you just described about taking the data, collecting it, putting it together, synthesizing it, and how is that going to roll out and how that's going to affect, we're in the middle of that. And that's pretty actually exciting for me to do. So we kind of, not jokingly, but looked at the CTAG as a phase one exercise where we got all these things to do, and they collaborate or corroborated a lot of things that we were doing or wanted to do, other items that we want to move forward on. We want to start collecting more data, get the collision data, get some of our all of our traffic signals we've worked hard on the last 3 years to get them all electronically collected. So it's all coming together now. We have an expert on board. So we're looking forward to rolling those sorts of things out and really implementing that. So we looked at the CTAG as wow, here's a whole long laundry list of things to do, and now let's hopefully take that staff time and start doing and really implementing and see what we can do and the improvements we can do. I don't know, Dave, if you have numbers or anecdotal numbers, but we're busy with them. I'd say several a week.
And they vary, of course. It can be anything from something as small as, somebody's asking for a little piece of red curb to something, you need to improve coordination on a Toro Road in the morning or something like that. So they're a broad spectrum of requests, but we get a fair number of them. And to Tom's point, we respond to all of them as best as we can. Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes it's no, and sometimes we find something that works even better.
Yeah, because again, we had a great group there, 6 or 7, depending on the time of the meetings. But and some of this is very high level, general to the city. Some of the discussions I look at, talks about things like roundabouts, and they're more general topics. A lot of these are very specific, and I think as the mayor mentioned, we get kind of parochial in our thinking sometimes. So it's just, this is the route I drive, so I know this is a particular issue, right? So I think if we put 7 different people from 7 different parts of town, we could have a similar list, and we could just keep doing that over and over again. So that's why, how we're collecting that data, both the hard data at each one of the intersections and roadways, as well as the anecdotal that are going to come from individual residents through ALF tickets and things like that, I think are really important. And just want to try to find a way to encourage that as much as possible, because this is probably one of the bigger frustrations that people have. They talk about traffic, and we don't always drill down all the way into what they mean. So is that traffic on the 405, or is it traffic on Baker? Is it, I can't leave my neighborhood because a bunch of kids are being dropped off at school right next to my house, or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of different issues that come into play there. But I think that the more data that we collect, and just not looking at the raw figures, but also that anecdotal information that's coming in through the ALF system, maybe over the last few years, and just kind of seeing, rather than just what we've seen in the last few months, really aggregating it as much as possible, I think would be incredibly beneficial. So I liked a lot of the things that they were mentioning in those 10 items. As we're talking about capital projects, I know that we'll get into some of that probably when we look at our CIP budget. But one thing that I've mentioned previously at some of our meetings is that I think that the more the 5 of us can get out into the region, the better. And talking to some of those influencers at different agencies, so whether it's OCTA or TCA or wherever it might be, and trying to solve some of these issues, I think would be very beneficial. I spent about an hour and a half with Daryl Johnson and Lori Donchek this morning, and talking through a lot of Orange County related transportation issues, and some of them specific to Lake Forest. And so I think the more we can do that, the better. Try to develop some good relationships there, and look for some of those funding possibilities for that next generation of technology, be it next generation traffic light synchronization or whatever other innovative ideas are out there. So I'd just like to continue this dialogue with you all, and just try to see how I might be able to help. So thanks.
Absolutely. I even had a thought maybe Waze could control our traffic. We could just pay Google to control our traffic. All sorts of creative ideas. So thanks again for everyone. Anything else?
The question I had is they put 10 items to us, and I don't know if you wanted to go over them tonight or just keep them in consideration when we bring up the budget, or how you wanted to handle that.
I'm one of 5, so I'm open.
Well, my initial thought is, while it's fresh on our mind and while we have them here, maybe it's better to deal with them now and go into the budget, rather than be at the budget and then try to remember what was that about. So that if you're hesitant to have binding votes, at least we could go into the CIP with, well, when we met and discussed it, we liked these 5, but we didn't like those 5, and then we could adopt it at the budget meeting, but at least now, while it's fresh on our minds, we could, get some kind of consensus. Do we want to pursue that one or not that one for the 10 that they put on our plate?
I think from the CIP perspective, for those that are going to require significant capital outlay, the CIP budget part comes up basically about a year from now. Is that right?
The council would be adopting a new CIP about a year from now. However, we'll be doing a CIP midterm review in about another 2 months. So there would be an opportunity for the council at that point to review those items that are in the recommendations that have a budgetary implication, make modifications at that point, or defer them for implementation into the next update, which would be for 17-18 and 18-19.
Yeah, and I know a few of these are already in the budget. Like it looks like, or are planned to be in the budget. They're your suggestions, like items 6 and 7, item 5. These are out of the 10. So there's a few that are already in there, and a few that you're looking for direction for. So, I don't know how you feel. I know Councilmember Nick needed to leave because he wasn't feeling well today. I feel like it might be something that all 5 of us would want to weigh in on, but I don't know. So I could go either way myself.
I don't have a problem making a motion that we include these in the budget, mid-year budget review, and put them in, that we just bring it up in discussion then.
For the capital projects you're talking about? Okay, so, if it's the council's desire, we could certainly bring those as part of the midterm review for the CIP. That's in a couple of months. So if that's the desire, we could bring it up, and hopefully then all 5 of you would be here at that juncture.
Yeah, well, I just didn't, they went to all the trouble, they gave us these 10 things, I just don't want it to sit and die, and then we'll forget about it, so and I'm happy either way. We could do it tonight if you want to wait for Councilman Nick to come back so we can all chip in on it. That's okay with me either way, so long as we don't lose it.
Absolutely.
That's my only concern.
Yeah, when I look through these, the first one is the CCTV camera. The way I understood that was that they were suggesting that would be basically maybe at the 2 major freeway entrances and exits, so on El Toro and Lake Forest, or maybe they were picking one specific one, and that's in a best practice category. The ongoing forum, I think, sounds like a no-brainer to all of us. I mean, we want to try to continue to find ways of soliciting feedback. Then the open streets one was not necessarily
more recreational
related, so that kind of goes a different route. The number 4 was the evacuation plan, which we were talking about having discussion about an inclusion into the general plan and just talking about evacuation routes. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of this was related to Portola Hills, because I know that there was some discussion about fire routes and things like that, and so just kind of assuming that's where that came from. Like I said, 5, 6, and 7 already have some budgetary expense here, and the 8, 9, and 10 look like they could end up being some significant dollars that wouldn't necessarily even maybe come from us, like tunneling under Trabuco Road or expanding what's already there, things like that, which worthy discussion, but, it looks like probably some significant capital expenditures there. So I'd be definitely willing to talk about them, but I think we'd have to find some funding for those. So.
Well, Laura, did you want to talk about 2 and 3 tonight? Because those seem to be those won't come up again at a budget meeting or at anything else. So rather than reintroduce them, we have them on the table now, and we could either yea or nay them. And I don't think Councilman Nick would make a difference one way or the other.
Okay. Works for me.
Yeah. Well, I think staff kind of had some verbiage there that they different opportunities and things. You know, we do have traffic forums. We've had 2 or so in the last, I don't know, you know, maybe website, maybe a little more prominent on the website. Is there anything specific that maybe staff wants to?
Mr. Member, Councilor, are we talking about number 1? Or, I'm sorry, is it number 2?
Yeah, you know what happens a lot, I get a lot of complaints about traffic, and staff have been very good meeting with me with people's concerns and going over the stuff. And a lot of times, I'm answering the same question over and over again. And I wonder if we didn't have a forum on the website where a lot of these, like the U-turn on, what were we talking about just the other day?
Lake Forest
The U-turn on Lake Forest Drive. That once, in many of these things that came here, once there's been a decision and there's a rationale for why we're not doing something, more important what we're not doing, because what we're doing. If that could be on the website, like frequently asked questions, why don't you have a U-turn on Lake Forest Drive at Rockfield? And, there's a reason for that. Why don't we have a light at the intersection of, what was that, Overlake and Lake Forest Drive? Those were the 2 issues that just came up just in the last 2 weeks. If we had like a website forum where we had those answers were up there and people could see them, one that takes a lot of time that, you guys must end up repeating these things again and again. And it might be a place also for people to come up with questions, to introduce the questions, and for you to answer them, and maybe speed up that process and make that more available to people, rather than you have to be here Tuesday night or Saturday afternoon. It's hard to do that, but people are so, and then it's staff time, it's location. Maybe we should be doing a website solution to that kind of forum. If it turns out we need more than that, sure, but it's also not only good for saving time in terms of setting it up, but also transmitting the information out so people know, listen, we've looked at that 7 times before. It's not going to be a solution. Here's why.
Personally, I like the FAQ concept for sure, and then the asking questions, just finding a way to redirect to Ask Lake Forest, which is what we have. So just make sure that, maybe when they're looking there, it says, and look to the right of the page, then click the Ask Lake Forest button if you're not already doing that. And that's why I was kind of getting to, what's that number that we're seeing right now? How many people are actually using it? And so, it's great to have you on board. I know that you came with big credentials. I know that you're capable of doing so much more, but this is a passionate area for you, and so we're just really excited to have you and taking this to the next level. And I like some of these ideas. It makes sense to me that an FAQ, so that you don't constantly have to answer the same question over and over again. And there's a lot of different ideas. I don't want to micromanage how it would be done, but it's. I definitely could, but I won't.
Mr. Members of the Council, as it relates to that particular issue, there is a FAQ process that's through the ALF system itself. And so what I sense is that what we likely could do, because we do track the numbers of requests that we get throughout that are transportation or parking related. It is the single largest category that we get when we look at it and try to categorize the types of requests that we get. We'll be able to provide you some actual statistics. If Mr. Tomayuno was here tonight, he might be able to just tell you off the top of his head. I don't know, but we'll give you something to give you a sense of what the various categories are that we track. We put some GIS capability into that. But what we obviously could do is to put more responses through that are pre-populated in the ALF system and answers those questions in some fashion. So it's what we have today, and we could perhaps expand that a bit to address that issue.
Cheaper, but
We go back to number 1. I was have had many communications with the Irvine Traffic Center, and it seems like to me, if we're considering doing that, there might be economies of scale if maybe we contract with another city. I don't care who it would be. Irvine seems at least responsive when they call. It was actually kind of funny. One time I even was traveling up Bake in the Irvine section, and there was a lot of traffic similar to what you were saying. And I don't think Waze was quite online yet. And they had an answer, there was an accident just right over the train tracks as you're going toward Foothill Ranch on Bake. So it was even like a little mini call-up SIG alert kind of a situation. So they have those cameras that they have in Irvine. But again, that's not, if we're going to do that, I just wanted that. So do you want to discuss number 3?
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I could, about number 1. And this goes back to some previous councils again, so it's a little bit of history. But fundamentally, the staff did a pretty extensive analysis. In fact, I toured the Irvine live traffic center as well as the one that Caltrans has that's right at the freeway that does the entire freeway system in Orange County. And the staff presented to the council back then the 3 types of options, ranging from the live monitoring of traffic to what we had at that point, which was not even what we're proposing to do today, which is our ability to tie in with live sort of communication with the signal, where we can do that remotely. We couldn't do that before. You had to actually go out and retime the signal at the intersection itself. We perhaps could provide, if I get the staff to pull out those reports, what they found was the Irvine system was incredibly expensive because it's live monitoring, so you're hiring employees to sit and watch TV. And so it's engineers that you're paying to do that. And so the council back then said that's too rich for our blood to be doing that. So they chose the middle road, which was computer systems that we had the ability to actually send data back in retime remotely rather than having to drive out to it. That said, I think the CTAG is suggesting you could put a couple of cameras in some strategic locations. If we're going to live monitor it, that's going to have related costs that you may want to understand before you do it. If it is, we'll have it as a capability, and someone calls us and there's a log jam, I guess we could look at the TV and confirm there's a log jam, and then what do we do with it? I'm not sure you want to rush full force into that at this juncture, but perhaps if we give you the report that the previous councils had looked at and rejected in terms of that process, you could revisit and decide if you want to do live traffic monitoring center. I would just caution that it's pretty expensive. Not that Irvine's system isn't great, but it is, but there's a cost associated with it. So we'll do that for you, and then you can perhaps talk about, because it has some budgetary implications long term if you want to go in that direction.
Yeah, I just didn't know if staff was going to go that direction. I just wanted to say that partnering with another city might be cost effective, but well noted. Duly noted. Number 3.
Yeah, that's always probably a good thing to do. I believe that we're going to have a bicycling. Oh, there's Dave now. Isn't there a bicycling event going to happen in the city? Okay, so maybe we could do like a month before that or something that promotes that. If we did a bicycling event, do it in association, like of the month before. They do that Tour del
Toro, right?
Tour del Toro, in order to publicize that, and then we get 2 birds with 1 stone. Is it expensive? How expensive would something like that be?
If we're talking about fundamentally a street fair where you're going to close the street, and depends on which street you decide you want to close and what sections of it you want to close. We have done various street fairs over the years on a very limited basis. We used to do some in conjunction with the skate park. When we dedicated the Arbor on El Toro with all the major improvements, we did a short street closure for a street fair that was at El Toro, but it was really on Rockfield. So it's a very limited distance. So you're affecting, obviously, traffic if you're going to close an entire street and do a street fair, which fundamentally I think this is the suggestion is that we're looking at. If you want to do that to promote another event, perhaps there's ways to do that other than closing a street and holding a street fair. And so you maybe want to look at some alternatives. But I think the question here isn't so much whether you want to close it and for the purposes of allowing bikes to go up and down. That's certainly a possibility, but think about it first as do we want to conduct a street fair, and for what purpose, and where would you want to do it, and for what length of that road would you want to close it?
Well, and also, I'm wondering, since we've got the CTAG people here, like, just exactly those questions. What were we going to get out of it? What was it? How was it going to be done, et cetera, et cetera. Just off the top of my head, sounds like it's good, but what would we get at the end of it? And, is there something? Are we opening up new bike lanes? Are we doing something? I guess all the CTAG people are gone. Oh, there's John. Do you remember what the rationale was in back of that?
Well, as I understood, and I'll let Mr. Wheeler jump in, but as it was explained to me by one of the chief proponents of that, it was sort of like the Ciclavia in L.A., where you basically have a bike rodeo that's on. Mr. Wheeler, you can perhaps go further into that, but that's fundamentally what I think the idea was. But you've heard that firsthand, so.
That's about what I heard. It was really one member's passionate idea, and nobody said no. It works great in a particular city in Los Angeles. It flopped horribly in a particular city in Orange County, but they thought it'd be a good idea to do. And there wasn't anything in writing. It was kind of a take back the streets idea, and there wasn't any more details than that. But they voted to move it forward, and it's on your list.
Just thinking maybe doing something with since we've got a bike event anyway, maybe now that's just a ride, right? Like a K ride.
There's an opportunity here. We do a 25 and a 50K or 50-mile ride, but in conjunction that we're in contact with all the bike shops in the area. And several of the bike shops, in preparation for these rides, conduct just what you're talking about, road safety, hazards, things of that nature. So there's an opportunity here to tie a lot of things together where we don't have to do all the work. We just give them the information and direct the folks to them. So we'd be interested in talking to you about it. And that's through the Boys and Girls Club also, by the way.
And you were so gracious to invite me in the first. You can sit down.
We'll even give you an electric bike.
Exactly. You were so gracious to let me ride an electric bike for 25 miles. So it was really tough. So these can be really challenging. When we looked at the parade budget, I think last meeting or two, just the closing the streets, the expense with respect to police officers and all the staff time and coordination that goes into it, it can be pretty extensive. I think if this is just off the top of my head, so the staff might just cringe when I say this, so I hope not. But I think if there was ever a time to test something like this out, it would probably be a 4th of July event. I'm not saying this year, absolutely not, because it's around the corner, but that probably makes the most sense. We've already closed some streets, and so we see if there's some interest maybe after the parade route's done and I don't know how long it would take for a booth to set up with, from bike shops and things like that, but, you've already done some of the legwork. Now, it becomes a longer day. I totally understand that part. So like I said, it's just off the top of my head, and you might be cringing. But if we were ever to even just test it, I think that might make the most sense. You already have, 10,000 people that are congregated in a particular area. Maybe they decide to stay a little bit longer. There's some food trucks or vendors or whatever it might be. I mean, I don't want to even give too many thoughts here because, this should be something that develops organically. Right now we've got, one individual who has probably seen it work in a successful way, and so they say, hey, why not, have it here, where I live rather than where I work or, where I've gone to experience, something nice, family fun time. But, the parade grew organically. I mean, it was from the community with city support. It was people like John Irish and so many others who said, let's do this. And then it was kind of, as we were forming the city, and so the city jumps on board, but there's just a whole team of volunteer support that comes behind it. Right now it's one individual, so if we were to say, yes, let's go do this, it would be one individual with a bunch of staff. and it would become a city event, a city-sponsored, driven entire event. And, if I were to speculate why it wasn't as successful in that one Orange County city you're referring to, it's that it was probably more council and staff driven, and the community support wasn't there. So you have an event and nobody shows up. Not nobody, it was probably hundreds or thousands of people, but not the tens of thousands that somebody expected to show up because it didn't happen organically. And so I think it's something worth exploring, but I would probably push back on this individual and say, now go form a committee and find 50 volunteers, and then come back to us when you've got, some big group, and we're interested. We just want to see it more than one person's idea.
In fact, the parade committee has that structure. There's the pancake group, and they're a subgroup in the parade committee. There's the 5K subcommittee and the thing. So, yeah, let's ask the guy who's interested in that to join the parade committee, and then inside the parade, we can talk about it Monday night. As a matter of fact.
I nominate John Irish because I'm sure it was his idea.
I'll second that. Council members, take your vote.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Irish, a longtime resident here. I believe this item came up about closing off the streets. Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, was at the very last 11th hour of our final meeting, and my surgical knee was hurting, and my caregiver was there stomping to take me home. So I said, hey, I'll go along with what you want to do, but I suggested that if you even want to do something like that, it would probably be the function of the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Community Services people rather than the traffic people to do, just like we do the parade committee. But just a little history from an old-timer of the parade. We did, at one time, try that same very thing. We do, like Jim says, we do the pancake breakfast, we do the race, and we do the parade. In the early years, way back when, we had something called 4 on the 4th, and nobody remembers this. Maybe Bob Dunick remembers it. But we ended up with some sort of a thing over in the Serrano Park, off of, where Serrano goes off of Lake Forest, and you have that nice park along there, a barbecue kind of thing. We didn't really close a street off for that, but we could have done that. And like you said, Dwight, that might be a good way to, implement or prototype something like that. But, the city's a lot different now than it was back then. I mean, everything we did in the past was all volunteers. I mean, totally. We even had to raise our own funds, except for street closures. Fortunately, the city did that for us. But I guess that's my only thought. But it was a possibility. I don't know if I added anything or just confused you. Thanks.
Thank you.
It sounds like we probably spent more time talking about it than you all did, so.
Well, yeah, let's just refer the guy who's interested, join the parade committee, see if it develops something organically, and otherwise it doesn't sound like, if nobody else was interested, we're not, not spend a lot of time on it, but if it can seed over there and grow, great.
All right. I think we recognized and we received a presentation. So we'll go to agenda item 21.
Agenda item 21, an ordinance establishing a prima facie speed limit within the city of Lake Forest, submitted by Director of Public Works, City Engineer.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Again, I'd like to defer this to Mr. Dave Rogers.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, council members. This is a companion item to the previous one you discussed on Saddleback Ranch Road. As you recall, we used the words traffic and calming in the same sentence when we described that project. Anytime you alter or significantly change a roadway or the characteristics of a roadway, you kind of have an obligation to go back out and determine whether the speed limit is appropriate or needs to be changed in some way. So following the completion of the project and giving a reasonable amount of time for traffic to kind of develop its new, what we believe to be its permanent patterns, we went out and conducted 2 surveys on the stretch where the city completed the project. And for the, what I'll call the northerly stretch from Pendleton up to Ridgeline, we found that speeds had reduced several miles per hour. And based on California law, that really kind of headed us in a direction of needing to reduce that speed limit to match the current conditions that are out there. So this ordinance would accomplish that by changing the speed limit on that section from Pendleton to Ridgeline from 40 to 30.
Any questions of staff? Do we have a member of the public?
Yes, David Hertzberg.
Welcome again.
Relax, everybody. I can be nice at times, and I'm sorry. As a citizen, it's hard because sometimes you want to. You're always here to criticize. I'm back to compliment staff on this, and I'm so glad that Dave Carter's here because he helped us get here. The road works. It's safer. It's slower. I know it's slower. My wife knows it's slower. I have friends at Malabar, Shady Ridge, all the intersections that were dangerous. This project worked. Sure, there was a problem on the upper third, but can we get past that? Can we remove the politics, Mr. Henderson and Mr. Gardner? Because the road works, and many of us in the community wanted this calming. So I'm ready to say move on. Quit calling it a fiasco. I totally support lowering the speed limit. That is what everybody has wanted who was involved in 2012. And we were involved before the whole problem occurred. And I know there was a problem, but let's move on. We solved it. You guys, staff came back, Dave Rogers came up with a wonderful plan, even a better plan than what we had in 2012. So, there's not a lot of people from my neighborhood, but I'm a guy that's lived there 26 years. The road didn't even go through, and this is a much safer road. And I just really want to compliment the city. I want to compliment Mr. Rogers, Mr. Wheeler, Doug Erdman. I want to thank that commissioner and Jerry, who was here, and Terry Anderson, who listened to my community in 2012 and did what the city can do and do really well when they listen to their citizens. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, thank you for those comments.
And just one aside, I'm not trying to be anything, but please don't apologize for coming up and speaking your voice. I know you did that, and we always appreciate your comments. There was a compliment in there somewhere. Any other speakers?
We've had no further requests.
All right, and bring it back to the council.
Well, in those early times, David, thank you for you and your community that came out to help direct us and help staff and traffic engineers come up with the idea. There was a lot made politically whether we were doing the right thing or that we weren't listening to the people. When the people came and addressed us on that issue, that it needed to be stopped, all we said is that we can't stop it with open trenches. Let's see where we're at. And staff was right on top of that. So I got to say to my staff, thank you, Tom and Dave. Thank you guys for being out there and meeting with the associations and actually making that road a safer place. There's a lot of people that drive up and down that, and there's those that use it as cyclists too. So we've added that element to that. So, it's a horrible thing when you pull out onto a road and think that there's cars coming down at 50 miles an hour that are going to run up your tailpipe, and that's what was happening then. And so we've addressed the concerns of the people, and I'm sorry that it turned into politics, but the fact is we just want to do what was right for the community up there and make it safer for the people. So I moved this item and say that thank you to staff, thank you for the community.
That was my motion.
I had a question. Do you think, has enough time gone by between the completion and when you did the study, and would it be different if you did it now than 2 months ago or whenever, when it was done?
Generally speaking, and if you make a change like that, and we're talking about when the city's project was done. I mean, the last cone got picked up, the trees were all in place. From that point, somewhere in the range of 30 days, actually can be less, but that's considered a very reasonable time period for traffic to normalize out. So I would not expect any significant variations, anything beyond that 30 days.
When did the last cone get picked up, and then when was the study done?
I'm sorry, I don't have that information off the top of my head. It was a time frame that met the criteria that I just described.
Okay, we got an email from people that came in today, and one of them was saying that there hadn't been enough time that had gone by. That's why I'm asking the question.
We appreciate that, and I did respond to the resident on that particular issue. Of course, you had myself out there, as well as the consulting company that we hired to go out there, and they review the field conditions and determine where it's appropriate to take these surveys. And nothing back from those conversations indicated that there was some concern that they had on their part in conducting those surveys, and certainly not from my own field review.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Any other discussion? Let's cast our votes.
That motion carries with Councilmember Nick absent. Agenda item 22, request for funding support 2016 drowning prevention campaign submitted by City Clerk. Yes, this item was placed on the agenda at the request of, with council consensus at the request of Councilmember Robinson, and then the staff reporter reviewed the various cities that had made donations in the dollar amount of $5,000. And if there's anything else, Chief Adams is here if you have any questions about what the campaign entails.
Just want to say thanks for bringing this back, and a number of the cities that are part of the Fire Authority have been focused on drowning prevention right now. A variety of different programs that are spelled out here in the staff report, everything from awareness to different events at swimming pools and things like that, talking about public safety. A lot of times when we look at drowning issues, I don't know about everyone else, but I tend to conjure up an image of a child falling into a pool, which is probably what a lot of us do, and that does happen, but a lot of the fatalities that have occurred in Orange County this year and in years past have related to adults swimming in pools on their own. There was a tragic story that was in the Orange County Register maybe about 2 months ago of a young 21, 22-year-old man at a 24-hour fitness swimming in the pool alone and drowned in the pool. I don't know the specifics about, maybe there was some health condition that came into play there, but I'm sure there was something that caused that. But, it's just trying to bring that awareness for all of us. Definitely when we hear about a young child, that just breaks our heart. In a very small way, I hope, I broke down up here a couple of years ago talking about attending the Best and Bravest Awards. I can't remember the exact title of the event, but and it was a Lake Forest resident who saved the life of a 3-year-old child. He was a firefighter and saved the life of a 3-year-old child, and at the time my son was almost that exact same age, and so I could just picture my son in his arms in that case. We've been very fortunate in Lake Forest that we haven't had any drownings the last couple of years, but it's something that we need to pay attention to. Every summer we need to be focused on that. And so there's been a task force that was put in place by the Councilmember Al Murray in Tustin that's been continued with the chairman of the Fire Authority Board, Gene Hernandez, Councilmember from Yorba Linda. That task force includes a number of people throughout the Orange County community that are involved in this particular subject. I think there's a former Olympic swimmer or diver that's a part of it, and quite a few others. And so just trying to bring awareness, and being that some of our neighboring cities have gotten involved, such as Laguna Hills and Mission Viejo, Tustin, and a bunch of others that are listed in the staff report here, each contributing $5,000. I thought that it might be a great way for us to just try to educate our own residents as well and support this worthy cause. I think it's not necessarily going to be spent in Lake Forest, but there'll be, again, PSAs, and potentially we could have an event somewhere here in Lake Forest. I've been talking to the Fire Authority staff about that, just to bring awareness to pool safety, so water safety.
Absolutely, and I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
To donate $5,000, County of Orange through its healthcare agency matching funds to support the 2016 drowning prevention campaign. So first and a second, cast your votes. Any discussion? All right.
That motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 23, legislative and regulatory matters submitted by City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the staff provided you with recommendations relative to 2 pieces of legislation that are currently under consideration in Sacramento, and one that's a proposal. The first one affects the number of seats on the Air Quality Management District, and the second one would deal with the city's indemnification relationship with certain design professionals who contract with the city. And the proposal is one that would affect affordable housing and provide certain over-the-counter approvals for housing that would more or less circumvent the public process for that process. So the staff recommends that the council take action in opposition to the 2 bills and the 1 proposal. We'd be glad to answer any other questions that you might have about this issue.
I'll move staff recommendation on the legislation.
Yeah, second.
All right, let's cast our votes.
That motion carries with Mayor Pro Tem Voights and Councilmember Nick absent.
If we had any further agenda items, I think we might keep dropping like flies here. All right, we're on to the city manager's report.
Nothing further this evening, Mr. Mayor.
I guess we'll...
I'll move the invitation to the Boys and Girls Club to tell us what they can do. Disclosure, I'm a member of the Kiwanis, and I guess the Boys and Girls Club falls under the Kiwanis, but I have no financial interest in the Boys and Girls Club.
I'd be open to receiving a presentation. I don't know exactly. They've laid out, Mr. Carter laid out a little bit of information there, but I'd be open to hearing a presentation.
Same here. Although we only need 2, but you got unanimous.
That's it. Thank you all for staying. You're staying, you should get an extra good cookie because you're staying and the council members have left. Let me go see if I can get the good cookies. Pass them out to...
I just wanted to say how much I appreciated Commissioner Verplank's comments earlier tonight, challenging each one of us. And we've gone through a challenging time over the last few months. And so earlier this week, my wife thinks that I'm weird because on weekends she'll watch something like Game of Thrones, and I'll watch book TV from C-SPAN. So I love American history. So earlier, I think it was Sunday, I actually was reading part of Lincoln's second inaugural address, believe it or not. So I just love to get inspired by our American heroes, our founders. And so there's a line at the end that I think I just want to challenge each one of us, to each one of us on the council here. It's more of a phrase at the end here, and I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit to personalize it to the city. But just in the spirit of Commissioner Verplank's comments, Lincoln said, "With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right of God, gives us with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right. Let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the city's wounds, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves." And we've gone through a challenging last few months. And if you happen to read my comments in the Register that reported on the recent issue that we're all aware of, I said that, I'm not, I don't remember it verbatim, but I'm not frustrated and I'm not angry, nor am I elated. I just hope that we can continue to work on behalf of the residents of Lake Forest. And I think that each one of us are up here with good intentions. And so, I hope that, we can continue to work together. We don't always have to agree, but the people expect us to work together. The community expects that out of us, and I just want us to try to find a way to do that. 42 days after Lincoln said this, he was assassinated, right? So it's not that an American hero, a founder, says it and everybody just accepts it and moves forward with it. But it's a challenge, and so I want to challenge each one of us, again, in the spirit of Commissioner Verplank's comments earlier today. And other than that, hope you all have a great evening, and wish you well.
It is really hard to follow Dwight. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm actually, he really has these just amazing things, and I appreciate him so much. And so I just want to echo what he said. And I love the city like everyone else and want the best for it. And I just thank you so much, Dwight, for saying that. I think that was just incredible. So with that, we're dismissed.